innovators. I'm Todd Weyandt, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Applied Software. You're invited to join our MEP and construction innovation adventure with a mission to propel this great industry forward. I'm excited to have on our special guest today, helping us celebrate our 100th episode. He's joining us for the second time, Tim Speno, President and CEO of E2E Summit. And it's been all the way back since episode 3, since last time we chatted on the podcast when it was live in person, if you can believe it, back in 2019. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Yeah, hey, Todd, great to be here. Hey, glad to be lucky number 3 as well. So how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for helping us celebrate the big 100th episode.
Wow.
It's exciting. You actually helped us launch the podcast. You're episode 3, but we rolled out like 4 or 5 episodes to launch it out. So you were in that original batch.
Is this the 100th episode?
Right around it. Yeah.
Great. Well, great to see you again, man.
Yeah. Thanks. You too. So for those who don't know your story, Tim, how'd you get involved in the construction industry?
Yeah. So when I first got out of college, I actually started in the power tool industry. So my first job was just a marketing grunt, an event grunt, if you will, demo person.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, DeWalt power tools, and then my career went, progressed through with DeWalt, and then went into the electrical industry for a few years with Cooper Busman on the product management side, and then I got my big gig, executive gig with Milwaukee Power Tools back in 2007, and was with them for about 7 years, and all my experience in all my roles has always been working with contractors, and it's a kind of a unique path, because a lot of times from a consumer goods or a product standpoint, you're dealing a lot with distribution. My unique experience is I always was working with contractors, which gave me a unique perspective on the business and the industry from that lens. And in 2012, I started my own company called E2E Summit. E2E stands for executive to executive. And essentially, I'm a connector. So I'm a connector in the industry that connects contractors, associations, trade organizations with companies and technology providers, innovation providers to help solve problems. And that's how I make a living now since 2012.
Nice. So as a connector, what's something that you've learned over the last year that you had to switch up your game with all the the challenges and curveballs thrown our way?
Well, the easy answer is COVID, right? But no, the number one thing is finding the right fit of people that have a passion, right, an appetite for the adoption of new technology. So it's not that you can just send over a great connection and a great technology company. Software company that that's going to solve a certain problem. You have to get that really good fit. It has to be a fit based on their bandwidth, their passion in solving the problem, and so a lot of times it's not just simply, hey, let me connect you and be done. There's a lot of discussion and understanding truly the needs of that contractor and their pain points. And making sure it's a good fit.
Yeah. Did those conversations look different over the last 18 months? Or, I imagine that most of that used to happen in person and at different trade shows and live events and everything. And so with everybody locked up in their house, how did that change the dynamic of it?
It's been unprecedented. It's changed the game with everything. The one thing I have seen, with the onset of the pandemic, is people are looking for innovative and new ways, technology to help them in helping their workflow, their processes, to be more lean, to eliminate waste. So the one thing I've seen in the last 18 months, closing on 2 years, is their appetite for technology and adopting technology has increased. And because they clearly are having to find new ways to get the same job done, but in a virtual setting. I mean, just look what is happening, obviously, with remote officing. And, that has been one small impact of the pandemic. think about now they're looking at so many new ways to get things done, get more done with less resources.
Tim, as things are kind of opening back up, what kind of lessons do you think we can pull that are going to stay around moving forward too from the last 18 months? Or do you think things are just going to kind of revert back to how they were before?
No, I think we've had we've had a complete shift, right? A complete shift of how they go into a project, how they manage a project, pre-plan the project, and execute the project. And because of the curveballs given to us on every facet of the job, I think our contractors have become better. And give you an example, probably two things that I've seen in my conversations that have had a paradigm shift is one, prefab.
Right.
Clearly, and there's studies out there, and I was involved in one with Electri International, where the more prefab that that a company had in delivering a project, obviously the less impact they had with any job site impact related to the pandemic and the waste associated with new things that they needed to do that they didn't have to do pre-pandemic.
Sure.
And then pre-planning, the lost art of pre-planning earlier the job, that has actually have had a new renaissance where contractors and teams are pre-planning the job much more effectively and earlier on, because they have to, because they just can't go out on a site and just figure it out. And pre-planning and prefab have been the two paradigm shifts that are going to stick with us and continue to improve and allow contractors to be better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear you bring up the pre-planning part of it. It's always been a perplexing component to me of why people don't take the time on the front side to think through and plan it out. To me, it just seems frankly quite logical that you would take time, think through it, kind of map it all out. Obviously, there's going to be things that come up and you have to adjust on the fly. That's life and construction. But
Todd, I'll add to that though. Understanding the situation, especially the subcontractors. They're a lot of times the last ones to get the design to do their work. They're the last one, obviously, to the MEP contractors. They're the last one to get on a site to do their work. And what happens is, with whether it's the GC or whether it's the owner, when the schedule constricts, they don't allow them and say, okay, well, we've lost 3 months on this job, we're going to give you we're going to give you 3 more months. Now it get pushed, the risk and the schedule overruns gets pushed to the MEP trades, and they have to deal with it.
Right.
It's not a one-to-one. They've lost a bunch of time up front doing the other phases of construction, their pre-planning side, their financing side, and then they're and they say, okay, well, we've lost 3-6 months. We're gonna give you that 3 to 6 months back to the MEPs. They don't, right? So they have the job to take half the schedule they had to do the same job. And by the way, maybe the designs aren't that great even at that point. So that's where they had to be, work smarter, not harder. And that's where the pre-planning and the integrating prefab has really been a tool to allow them to be successful and to control their destiny.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. It's a broken workflow that the trades are not in on the front side of the conversation, for sure. And I think it's, to your point, it's why the trades took it upon themselves to get creative and really latch on to prefab, because they had to in order to just kind of survive. And so it's an interesting dynamic, I think, now in the industry, because a lot of the innovative mindset and the growth mindset is happening in the MEP space.
Yeah.
I don't think perception has caught up to that reality yet, that the MEPs are the ones leading the charge, but MEP is leading the charge for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting, just culturally, I will tell you, if you ask any, mechanical, piping or electrical worker out there, they've been doing prefab, their whole career.
Yeah.
They just have always prefabbed at the site, in their workstation in their area, and then they apply it. So the good thing is you're seeing that prefab getting more more compartmentalized, within the company and the support of the company, and obviously maybe off-site. But the interesting thing is, one thing I have learned is the tradespeople have always done their prefabbing just because that's how they control their destiny for that day at work. And now the nice thing is you're seeing a lot of those best practices now being blown up, doing off-site, and maybe investing in space and actually a dedicated operation of prefab, at their facility, at their headquarters.
Yeah, absolutely. What's a common piece of wisdom in the industry that you don't think is accurate?
My thought is really the adoption and implementation of technology. The wisdom I would give is, we all know it's difficult, and we all, change is difficult. I think many people have done this. If you cross your arms like this, like, the normal way, now cross your arms the other way,
right.
The other way. It's that loss of familiarity that is scary, and it's real. I mean, just do it yourself while you're watching the podcast, or this podcast. So the wisdom I would give is to get the people that are implementing and are going to be impacted all the way down to the frontline worker in this change in technology, and onboard them, essentially. Do the non-technical things, which is explain to them why you're doing this, explain to them how you're doing it, explain to them what they should expect, and it's really that onboarding, if you will, and that emotional connection that you have with all the people that are going to be connected to this new technology, this new workflow software, this whatever that you're doing, this change in their familiarity, is do the ton of work that needs to be done to get them on board, to get their input, to get their skin in the game, right? And then have constant feedback loop, and just cater to the emotional side of adopting technology, not just the technical side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you heard of the book How to Fly a Horse by Kevin Ashton?
No. How to Fly a Horse by who?
Kevin Ashton. He's the guy that created the whole concept of IoT, Internet of Things. It was recommended to me by actually a past guest, Renee Morkos, several episodes back. And it's all about the history of creativity and innovation and the mindset and what leads up. So I'm reading it right now, and it's super fascinating. It's exactly what you were just saying of change is hard, and how we speak that like we like creativity and we try to incentivize creativity, but the reality is that humans are hardwired to do the exact opposite, and to shut down creativity and to shut down innovation. And when something new and different comes up, you're going to meet a much bigger resistance. And so as an innovator, you have to go in there expecting to be shut down and pushed kind of to the sidelines pretty hard. And the harder you're pushed to the sidelines, the more likely you're onto something that's pretty change-worthy and innovative and pretty cool. But
it's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
It's frustrating for those people. It's sometimes, a lot of times I would say it's demoralizing when it's also being forced upon them without their input, feedback, and understanding of why and what the end goal is. What's the end goal? And also that this may just completely flop. This may completely fail, right? But we're going to learn a ton along the way, and you're an integral part, of this whole process.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other can of worms there too, of redefining failure and embracing it. That, construction failure is it's a bad 4-letter word, and everybody's incentivized not to fail, which obviously nobody wants to wear the big F of failure on them. But I think if we change it to what you were just saying of you're going to be learning insights along the way. Not everything that you do is going to be a home run smash out of the park. You're going to have to figure out how to pick yourself back up and learn from something that didn't go the right way and figure out what to do better.
Yeah.
Well, what do you see as the biggest opportunity in the construction industry moving forward?
I think the biggest opportunity, in my opinion, is with the onset of technology and innovation, and us just implementing some really cool technology. Whether it's whether it's 3D and modeling, whether it's augmented reality, whether it's IoT, I really think technology can be a tremendous pull factor for the next generation of workers
Mhm.
to come into the construction industry for a career. When
Mhm.
they see that they can have access and have the most technologically advanced workday, or to work with some of the most technologically advanced hardware and software. And I just think the technology and the software and how we're evolving from a construction industry can be a huge factor to try to promote our career
Mhm.
for other people that are not looking at construction as a career path.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a big perception problem of what the construction industry is. And we don't do a great job telling our story of the technology and innovation that's happening in this
Right.
space to those outside.
And it can be a huge differentiating factor for a company, to hire hire talent, to get talent, to retain talent, but also from a business development standpoint. When you're going to a customer or a general contractor and you're showing them how much you have invested in technology and how advanced that you are from a workflow standpoint, um, you know, you can get more jobs. You can get stronger relationships, because if they're seeing how you're doing it and the investment that you're taking and the commitment that you're taking related to technology and innovation versus someone that's still performing the work the way it was in the 70s,
Right.
it's a huge competitive differentiator for a company. But don't do it just for back end, back office synergies. Put it in the forefront and use it as a marketing tool to get more business and to attract and retain better talent.
Yeah. Well, it has to be really integrated and become part of the cultural DNA of the company.
Yeah.
I think in order to really be successful and see all the total benefits that you can.
Mm-hmm.
How would you encourage people to share that story of technology and innovation more to pull in that wider and more
Yeah.
diverse audience?
This is a direct answer, maybe an indirect answer to that question a little bit, but I take a look at what the military does.
Uh-huh.
If you Google, the evolution of the soldier, what will come up is you'll see a soldier from World War II and what they looked like, what their equipment was like, and what's really very, very important is that soldier, man or woman in the World War II, it's the same person, it's the same physiology, same DNA. They're leveraging technology and equipment available at the time. Then you take a look at the current soldier, compared to the World War II soldier. And that current soldier, again, same person, same physiology, DNA, but look at the equipment and the innovation and the connectivity of that current soldier, and it's right there when you Google it, and then you take a look at, you'll see the soldier of the future, DARPA and what DARPA is doing. All it is again same exact person, DNA, physiology, but leveraging equipment, connectivity, and innovation and technology to do their job more effectively. And if you take a look at all the numbers that they track based on the effectiveness and the safety and the well-being of that soldier, it is 100 times impacted based on where they are going to where they were 50 years 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Is there something piquing your curiosity right now in the industry?
Well, the one thing is, I take a look at, if you were to take a look at of a construction worker, right? MEP, MEP contractor, MEP worker from World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and see what's changed from then till now. There's been there's some safety equipment that's more standard. You've gone to cordless tools versus corded tools, but all in all, it really hasn't changed that much. They're still doing a lot of the same things and leveraging the same tools and equipment and technology that they did, 60 years ago. And that's the difference. If you were to take a look at, what does the future construction worker look like? If you were to map that the way other industries have done, whether it's military or agriculture, I think, there's going to be a renaissance for construction because I think it's required now. I mean, and the one thing I would say is look at the evolution of the family farm. Look at the evolution of agriculture. Look at how they go, in agriculture today versus they did in the turn of the century or turn of the 20th century. Construction is following the same path. We're just 100 years late.
Yeah. Ag has totally. It's an entirely different industry now compared to what it was 100 years ago, for sure.
All impacted by technology and new ways and workflows and essentially the industrialization of agriculture, much like the factory first, then agriculture, and construction is going to be the very similar way.
Yeah, I agree. So if you could wave your magic wand and innovate one thing in the industry, what would it be?
That's a great question, Todd. My thought would be the pilot, the pilot of adopting new technology. So the art and the commitment of testing and trial and error. One, it's a commitment to do it, right? To do it, to do it to yourself in terms of, all of our contractors have their own facilities, their own warehouse, their own projects, tested on themselves first. But it's that R&D, it's that trial and error pilot. The pharmaceutical industry has clinical trials. Well, how much are we trying and doing R&D to adopt new technology to see if it works and to kick the tires and to see and actually hoping it would fail to understand why it failed and how you can adjust. So I think it's the art, the commitment of the pilot, the test and error or the trial and error side of adopting technology that needs I would hope that would be as important as estimating jobs.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, you got a lot going on. How do people get a hold of you and find out more information?
It's very easy. There's only 2 Tim Spenos on LinkedIn.
That makes it easier.
I have not met the other one, but yeah. So all my information's on there. Connect with me, but very easy to find me on LinkedIn. So
nice. And you got talk coming up soon, right?
Yeah, we have the Industrial Grade Innovation Conference in August 17th in St. Louis. So it's been just refreshing to actually do an in-person event again. And get there, we have a great turnout. We have some great technology and innovation on display for hands-on. We have some great speakers and content, and most importantly, we just have a great group of people assembling in St. Louis that will be able to share a drink with and a cold beverage that we haven't been able to do for 18 months.
Yeah. Love it. That's always a great one for sure.
That's right.
And then you're going to be joining us as a moderator of one of our roundtables at MEP Force 2 weeks after your event. So thanks for pulling double duty here.
August 30th, right, Todd? Right?
August 30th, it kicks off. That's right. That's right.
Yes, I will be early. I promise. I'm looking forward to it, and I've always enjoyed the MEP Force. I think one plug from my podcast, Bridging the Gap number 3, is that community that you all have created with MEP Force. If you're a VDC or involved in VDC or modeling or pre-planning, pre-construction, MEP Force and what you all are doing is creating a community that they can go to connect, share best practices, show your scars, show your battle wounds, right? And just enjoy the fellowship of what you all do day in and day out to help each other and to raise the level of play and execution and performance. And just the people that you gather and assemble. That's a key ingredient. That's a key ingredient to take what we're doing to the next level. It's all about leveraging your friends and peers, and just sharing those war stories, and putting your heads together and figure out what you would do differently next time.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we put a lot of time and attention behind the community aspect of it, and it's always my favorite part is to get to mingle with all the people coming to the event and hear all their stories, because they're always good.
I know you might need to have a podcast just dedicated to bridging the gap, just dedicated to what's your battle wound.
That's right. I like that.
Right?
Don't be surprised if that comes up in the next 100 episodes. I like that idea.
Cool.
Well, final question for you, Tim. What does innovation mean to you?
What innovation means to me, it's the lifeblood of what we do. It's the lifeblood of everything that we do in our jobs. It's the lifeblood of some of the connections that we have with people. It's the lifeblood of our performance. It is how we grow in everything, professionally and personally. So innovation, imagine, a car without gasoline, right? Imagine your human body, without blood. And innovation is the life force, right? For us to do what we need to do personally and professionally. And it's everything.
Yeah. Amen.
I always enjoy this. It's great for me also to formulate, my thoughts on things, because, I have feelings about how I feel about these things, but to articulate them,
yeah,
it's a whole nother story. I feel about innovation, right? I have feelings about it. I'm passionate about it. I love it, but it is difficult to articulate what I'm feeling, because I'm never going to do it justice. To articulate how important innovation is, based on how I feel. I just wish, it's kind of like your family, how do you really articulate and tell them how much you love them? Right. And that's a little bit about innovation for me, right? It's just tough to articulate exactly how important it is.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes out in the passion, and I think that more than shines through when you speak about it. Tim, thanks so much for coming on. It's always fun to talk to you.
Thanks, Todd. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, absolutely.